therapists. So could I have the slides on who's running a laptop? It would be really great if that also showed up here. Is that possible? We're technologically working on stuff here. No, still don't. Oh, there we go. Thank you so much. Great. How about a hand for these very complex? We got 2 laptops and we're also live streaming. Let's give a hand to the technology here. Great. Those of you who are watching online can lift your coffee cups. Thanks so much for bringing this back up. I realized I forgot to give a great big thank you, mahalo nui loa, to our conference sponsor, EPA. Noemi Emmerich Ford was just sitting here. She's in the back right now. Raise your hand. Thanks. Let's give a thanks round to EPA for funding all this. You'll be hearing from Noemi later on some of EPA's programs. The right click? Which one? And I don't have any control here. Okay, so there we go. Okay, we forgot to do the tech rehearsal with all details here. So here's a quick overview of what I'm going to talk about. You saw Brennan talk about the rail already. Working on neighborhood TOD plans and zoning, a lot of focus on connectivity and complete streets, financial toolkit of incentives and funding, our affordable housing strategy, the way that we work together in all the city departments in a sub-cabinet, and then some growing market interest in catalytic projects. I thought I would start first. I rarely show slides from elsewhere, but we wanted to put some pictures in people's minds of what people are doing on other rail lines with TOD and brownfields. Minnesota is really seeing a big spur of redevelopment on brownfields, some condos at stations. They have an award-winning green office building, the Greenway building. It's on a former arsenic site in Minneapolis. It's 1 block from the rail line and right on the Greenway, and it has also solar and water reclamation, a lot of other good environmental examples. In Charlotte, North Carolina, they have a land acquisition fund. That's one of the things that we're looking at in strategy. They're using that to assemble brownfield parcels near stations for redevelopment. Denver is taking a corridor approach, much like the one that we have to redevelopment with multi-agency coordination. Going back to what we're focusing on here, we're really focusing on using the rail line and the investments to make improvements for a series of walkable, healthy, age-friendly neighborhoods that connect people with where they need to go, making sure that in the plans every station area has a unique identity based on that community. The new development fits the community context. Waipahu is very different from Moana. And that we use these investments to revitalize our older communities. And this Brownfield grant focuses on those, what we call legacy communities, the older neighborhoods, often former industrial areas. But it's really not about plans or projects or investments. It's really about people and their neighborhoods and how we come together to actually help make those improvements happen, a combination of public-private investment, and how we help people live, work, and connect with each other, connecting with family and friends, with each other. How many people know what performance measures are? So a really good performance measure is when people take their wedding photo at your bus stop. You know you did a good job designing it. Connecting with parks and gathering spaces, connecting with fun and games and new kinds of improvements in the parks, connecting with the Aina. It's also, we've got a linear system, but if you know the Ahawa system, we always think Mauka to Makai. So we really want to make sure that we make those connections with the Aina from shore to mountains. Connecting with shops and services, new kinds of complete streets. And as Brennan mentioned, connecting with learning. It's no accident that 4 current community college campuses are on, if you count Burns School of Medicine, LCC, HCC, and UH West Oahu, to all be connected by this first phase of rail, which we hope eventually will go up to UH Manoa. We've been working for 9 years on the neighborhood TOD plans. Got a real system to go from vision and plan to zoning and implementation to successful projects, and then really the bottom line, creating vibrant neighborhoods. As Brennan mentioned, there's 21 station areas. 2 of those are under HCDA control in Kaka'ako, so we focus on the 19 in terms of planning. The Waipahu area and Aiaporo City are adopted by City Council. We're also introducing on September 30th at Planning Commission the new zoning for the district, and starting in Waipahu. We've got draft plans completed for East Kapolei, for Kalihi area, for downtown area. Both of those last 2 are at council right now, going through the adoption process, and for Ala Moana. And we've just started, about half a year ago on the Alava area around the stadium and on the airport and Pearl Harbor area. So those are all underway. I'm going to go through some highlights. I also wanted to highlight that there's a huge amount of both city and state lands along the corridor, and there's another state gathering every month that some of the senators have initiated, for all agencies are getting together and looking at the state lands around TOD. Starting, I'm going to just hit highlights of a few plans. All of these are online. If you haven't noticed, our staff has a booth out front that has copies of many of the summaries and tremendous amount more details online. In Ala Moana, most of these, our consultants started by looking at all of the areas in the TOD planning area and looking, what we call kind of a windshield survey of really looking at where the vacant areas are, where the high development, high value areas that would not get redevelopment, where the parking lots are, old one-story buildings that are non-historic, and figuring out which ones are redevelopable and which ones are not. So even in an area like Ala Moana area, you can see that everything in orange is kind of low value and redevelopable, and most of those are on the corridors where you'd like to see change happen, say, Kapiolani, Keeaumoku, King Street. So that forms the basis of where change might be desired by the community. We go through a planning process to figure out where the change could happen. And then the most important part that the community asks for. We always have them review 3 to 5 alternatives with varying degrees of density. Every one of the communities so far has picked one of the higher density alternatives, as long as they get the benefits they're looking for, really connecting those places with active streetscapes, gathering places, and using the investments in individual buildings to help create and connect the community. When we look at a plan like Ala Moana, it's changing requirements. If somebody's building new, they really can't have blank streetscapes under the new proposed codes. It has to be active, engaging. We've gone through and looked at, this is a pretty big if all the proposed public and private sector improvements were made in Ala Moana, you're never going to see all those improvements in the plan. But if they were all implemented, you could have as much as 300% more tree canopy, twice as much, 600% more parks and plazas, almost 500% more bike network, way more impermeable surfaces. So there's tremendous improvements that could happen if we require every development to make these kind of investments. Skipping through Kaka'ako and just focusing on Chinatown area. In downtown, there's a few places for redevelopment. In Chinatown, there's a few. In Iwalei, there's a lot more opportunity for redevelopment. We'll talk about that in a minute. But looking at Chinatown, it's more about retaining the historic character, revitalizing some of the streets like River Street, redeveloping a few surface parking lots. What that might look like, looking at the River Street corridor, is there's sort of great bones there already. There's good investments, really nice treescapes, a great park, things like that. That really just need more activity, more revitalization. And you can see further Mauka, space for a couple more towers, kind of mid-rise. We also did a recent Chinatown Action Summit to focus on more near-term improvements for the community, and really a focus on increasing art and events and heritage activities with some minor physical improvements. The things that we are looking at right now are really connecting what would be the new train station at the corner of Nimitz and River Street, up the River Street corridor, along Sun Yat-sen Mall, and up to Foster Gardens. And focusing on 3 kinds of near-term actions over the next year or two: improvements in street and placemaking, cleanliness and sanitation, and events, activities, and economy. We realize Chinatown is actually an original TOD. It's already walkable. It's already got kind of great stuff happening there. We really want to focus on just cleaning up our act as a city and with private sector as well. Moving next door to Chinatown, where a lot of change is expected, the Iwilei to Kalihi area, you can see in this is graphic depiction of what the potential redevelopment might be. And you can see on the right-hand side, some red towers around the station. What's in the kind of harvest gold is a roughly 20-acre mayor right public housing that the state has already is process of engaging a development team to redevelopment that area. And then moving along to, you see in blue is Honolulu Community College, and then right along the Kapalama Canal. I'll show some images of what that might look. These 4 neighborhoods, 4 stations are 4 of the 7 target areas for this brownfield grant, from Iwilei to Kapalama to Kalihi to Middle Street. That includes some areas like well, what we call the big box area. This is actually the Costco lot. We drew on this to show as an example of how a big box area might transform. Still keep the big box stores, but have redevelopment on top of them. Sorry to break the news. There's no pending deal with IKEA. Everybody always asks that question. I got to jump right to it. It's just an idea. Feel free to start an email campaign. But you can kind of have your big box and walk to it too. So plenty parking, but condos above. We look at every one of these areas and figure out what the development potential is based on those drawings, what's redevelopable. This is just for the Kalihi Kapalama area. When you total these all up, it's about 55,000 new housing units would fit in the draft plans developed so far. In the Kapalama area, which Mayor has picked as a catalytic project area, and Council has funded some preliminary planning work for this, it focuses around the Honolulu Community College. One of the reasons we picked this area is Kamehameha Schools owns most of the land, and they already have a master plan to develop more workforce housing, things like that along the canal. So this is an image of what it looks like a couple of years ago, and this is the vision for a future. More, this is not Kaka'ako style towers. It's more low-rise and mid-rise workforce housing units. We're going to be conducting a planning process over the next year for this area, and it might turn out to be more of a green vision with something that this is a hardscape vision. We want community input in this specifically, but more of a linear park along that area, surrounded by new housing, with green infrastructure, climate adaptation, some of those things that really matter. In Middle Street area, it's currently the OCCC, the Correction Center, is right near the transit station, and we don't expect development to happen there until a decision is made whether to either move or redevelop that OCCC. That's a state decision at the legislature right now. But we decided to show in the plan what it could look like if you just took the prison and redeveloped a quarter of the site. We were one of those new, more urban, vertical style prisons. Moving along to the airport area, that's in process right now, so the plan's not developed, but just sort of a feel of the planning area. We expect this to be much more industrial in working with the neighbors and the landowners and the airport folks. We're just showing it's a fairly narrow band of development between the airport and Nimitz mostly, because the other side of Nimitz Highway is Navy housing. But we're working through those issues right now with the community. Moving to Halawa area, and this is a real partnership with the state. There's 2 different state agencies working on that with us. And just floating the idea, again, it's a state legislature decision about, and I guess the stadium board and then potential funding by legislature to consider what to do with the stadium itself. That's a separate study that we're coordinating with. But part of that study is thinking, well, what if we redevelop the area? So we've been working with the state to develop a draft TOD plan that looks at things like potential for a mixed-use sports and entertainment district. This is one at the University of Phoenix. Or something like LA Live, the Staples Center, which has stadium and entertainment and cultural events, hotel and housing in the same area, potential for an urban lifestyle with those kind of amenities, places for people to gather, not just the folks living there, but this is actually walking distance from several surrounding existing neighborhoods. And people have asked also for activated green spaces, connection to the Pearl Harbor Historic Trail, connection to the visitor center at Pearl Harbor. Moving right along the Pearl Harbor Historic Trail, it's interesting. Naomi, we actually walked the trail when you were here on your last visit when we won the grant, and that's an area that really could be incredibly better redeveloped over time. So we've kind of looked at that area. If you know, the stadium is over on the right. It's kind of grayed out at the bottom of that area on the right. And a short walk away would be Pearlridge, or one rail stop away. There's one of the first TOD proposals, the Live, Work, Play IAEA, on top of the Kamehameha Drive-In site. And that's moving through, it's approved and moving through the development process right now. It's their gathering space. But we also realized as a city, we need a place just to turn the buses around at the station because it's right up against the water. So we're in process of acquiring some land to do a mixed-use, mixed-income housing over a new bus transfer station right there at the kind of at the bottom of Kaunohi Street, across from Territorial Savings Bank there. This is what the trail looks like right now. It's built. It was just in the paper recently that the state is continuing to work on the extension all the way over to the Leeward coast. But this is what it looks like right now on a good day. There's also, on a bad day, there's garbage. There's I was just there the other day, and there's ponds and muddy and refuse and things like that. So one of the ways to do that as it redevelops along the trail near the transit station is to ask each new development to kind of take their part and turn, so go back, turn their part of the trail into something that is more like an outdoor living room. We call this trail-oriented development. There's a great new project in Atlanta called the Atlanta Beltline. Goes through downtown Atlanta, and they really are orienting all the housing to the trail and making it a tremendous amenity. Moving on, another example, let's skip over a couple of stations. Going to Leeward Community College, another example of what the state might do with its land. This is longer term because this is a pretty full commuter parking lot when LCC is in session. But once the rail comes in, that frees up a great deal of potential for some of that parking lot to be redeveloped over time. So we showed what that might look like over time, replacing some of the parking, creating new neighborhoods that could be housing, mixed use, could be technology spin-offs or something related to campus. But it would also take what's now a kind of barren wasteland between the parking lot and the campus and turn it into what every campus really needs, a great campus quad and gathering space. Moving to Waipahu, Waipahu and West Loch are the other two what we call legacy neighborhoods that are a focal point for this Brownfield grant. And one is traditional neighborhood, Waipahu. West Loch is more of a kind of suburban shopping center and industrial area. And the plan calls for them to be redeveloped with a real focus point on the transit station and transit station neighborhood, and just turning Main Street into something that is more active with more customers for the old kind of stores. Moving along to West Loch, more of still an industrial area, but with some gathering spaces, potential for new housing. And then finishing up in East Kapolei, this is really all new development areas, combination with Ho'opili, which is a private development, and then UH West Oahu Station, which will be led by the state. And primarily walkable village scale development around 3 stations. This is a chance to get suburban development right with much more dense, much more walkable, focused around the station areas. So that's the plan summary. I'm going to quickly kind of spin through the implementation strategy. Sorry, I'm having a little problem with the delay on this. So we have the TOD Sub-cabinet coordinates investments. We're finalizing and adopting the neighborhood plans. We're working on zoning and process improvements, the financing incentive tools, this Brownfields grant that Tim Strites, my staff, will be talking about a little later today, the new affordable housing strategy, and then working on our roles with partners, actually many of whom are in the room, and then focusing on developing some catalytic projects to lead the way. I'm not going to read all of these. These are the key members of our TOD Sub-cabinet that literally meets every Tuesday for lunch and focuses relentlessly on how we're going to get this stuff done. We have a whole list of partners. It's actually probably 3 slides longer than this at this point, but many state agencies and then lots of other organizations, professional organizations, realtor and developer groups, nonprofit advocacy groups. In terms of zoning, September 30th at 1:30 p.m., this will be in front of the Planning Commission. We already have an interim plan development transit permit for any of you landowners within a half a mile of any of the rail stations. You already have, if you have a lot of 20,000 square feet or more within a half a mile of the rail station, you don't need to wait for the rest of the zoning to be adopted. You can come in and negotiate flexible agreement to redevelop under the interim plan development, which council has already passed already. What we're proposing on the 30th is a new TOD special district that will cover the entire rail corridor. Focuses on use and design standards to activate the streetscape with more density, more mix of uses, less than half the parking, new bike parking required, and then new formulas for community benefits in return for additional height and density. And then at each station, we're preparing the zoning based on the community plan that allows for more mix of uses. And that is starting with Waipahu. We have the draft one for Pearl City underway, and then we'll be developing the rest of the zoning as each one of the plans is adopted. This is just the example from West Lock Station area. You can see red is BMX or mixed use. Tan is the AMX or apartment mixed use. And then purple is everything below the highway there is industrial, and we're proposing to change the area that's closest to the transit station from I2 to IMX to allow a little bit greater mix of uses. Same thing in Waipahu. I love this map. It looks like congressionally gerrymandered. We always start with, half-mile circle, but, when you start talking with people and, the parts that are carved out are the existing single-family neighborhoods, and people say, we don't really want to change. We'd love to be able to walk to the rail station, but, don't draw anything new here. So, this is only the areas where people want the change that are carved out for potential change. There's also some associated regulations for the sidewalks and TOD special districts. They really focus on letting building owners bring their buildings closer to the street, but leaving enough area for a wider sidewalk that could be part on private land. We think that people, when they come in for a permit, should just get one permit that allows them to do outdoor dining, allows them to put benches and merchandising out next to it. You not have to apply for a whole series of special permits for that. So we're trying to wrap that all together. New affordable housing strategy. We put the draft out last year, and we've been working on a lot of technical analysis and getting ready to put forward some new amendments. I have to give so many thanks to council for passing unanimously the accessory dwelling unit ordinance recently, which will allow people to put accessory dwellings on either attached or separate on their single-family housing zoning lots. But the strategy includes lots of new policies. It includes things like the TOD zoning, accessory dwelling unit ordinance. We're getting ready to propose a new requirement for every development to include a portion of affordable housing. You should watch for that coming out in the next month or two. And then lots of new building types and things, smaller lots, things like that. The vision is really focusing on housing choices that build community, strengthen neighborhoods, and fit family budgets. I want to, again, thank on ADU ordinance. You've been seeing a lot of new items in the paper about that as people learn more potentially. It's interesting, the Star Advertiser did a poll that kind of came out 50-50 in terms of support, but the part I noticed was that there was hundreds of people who said, I'm really thinking of putting one on my lot. So it doesn't matter what the whole community thinks if there's hundreds of people that are actually getting ready to step forward and contribute to the affordable housing shortage. Just some examples of what those might look like. either attached to your unit, a separate small cottage on top of your garage. We've also revised our forms and checklists, so there's really good instructions online at honoluludpp.org to look at how to do that. And we're talking with the industry about having master permits so that people can offer particular kinds of units and have them pre-approved, so that all you need to do is submit a site plan and make sure infrastructure is there. We're also encouraging things like micro units, new building designs, new types of units that we haven't seen here before. And the new proposed financial toolkit, we have a consultant working to help us refine this. It would do things like establishing infrastructure finance districts, reducing some fees for the affordable units to lower housing costs, like adjusting tax exemptions, modifications to our funds, creating a new toll loan fund in partnership with the state. We'll be proposing that to the state legislature again this year. We are working on infrastructure master plan and a financial toolkit focusing on the Iwilei Kapalama area, which coincides with 4 of our 7 legacy neighborhoods, to explore district financing options to accelerate the infrastructure there. This is again that potential pilot district. Want to just highlight this. We did, thank you again to US EPA. We got a $400,000 Brownfields assessment grant. Tim Streich will be going into this in detail a little bit later, but it will provide, it's not a money grant to individuals. It will help us provide landowners, small landowners primarily, with the assistance to conduct the phase 1 and phase 2 environmental assessments and develop cleanup plans on your property. And I'm just going to finish with streets, because we talk about development. A lot of this development is going to take years and years for us to see the benefits of all these individual investments. We're really focusing right now on streets because they're what we own together. They're our biggest, largest accessible public space on the island, and so we're trying to focus on some changes to them, and often more in a quick version. Things like complete streets and the cycle tracks and bike lane on King Street, and some other interim design strategies. Did anybody go to one of the parklets on Friday? Anybody see the parklets on Friday? One person, we got somebody? Okay, good. My staff, yeah, good. Yes. Thank you, Tim. Look forward to seeing the pictures. We'll show you a couple. So, but with complete streets, the stuff that shows is really small kind potatoes, because the big investments are underneath the streets. So the things that we look at and see, the sidewalks and trees, are really fairly small compared to the rest of the investments, but they're what matters to people. We do have a new draft design manual that will really change the way we're building our streets over time, so we get the new stuff right and we make it easier to fix the existing streets. We're trying to incorporate some things that not only make it easier to cross, but also address water quality, like rain gardens and green infrastructure. This is a parklet. This is the first one. Thank you to Kamehameha Schools putting this out in front of Hank's Hot Dogs. But because of this pilot, we have a new draft design manual for that as well. So make it easier to do the next one. We also are trying to incorporate some of the things that activists are doing, these kind of pop-up streets and experiments in the streets, and actually incorporate that into the way that we're doing business at the city. So we can just, rather than 3 years of engineering, we can just try something and see if it works, and then make it permanent. We're also starting to work on a protected bike lane network. The King Street one was so successful. We have 70 to 80% more bike riders. 80+% of the ones that were riding on the sidewalk are now riding in the lane, which protects the pedestrians more. And so it's, the next one proposed is for South Street, and that's undergoing review right now. And then last but not least, if you haven't heard of Bikeshare, we've got a new nonprofit that is working with some state and city funding right now, looking for more funding to build a system. If you didn't see them, they actually had several of the bikes, different vendors on island in the last few weeks. And the goal is to get this installed in Waikiki to Chinatown within the next year or so. So that's a quick version of what we're doing. You can see it could be one within a block or two of where you need to go. And I'll end with that. Yeah. We got time for a quick question or two, Davis?
So much for the tech. Oh, I don't know if you can get it working. Well, we just have a time for a question or two. Would anybody like to really put Harrison on the spot here? No? Okay. I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. We have a question. Can you just belt it out, please, unless the microphones were... Oh.
Seems like with all the development along the corridor, to have the Kalihi area with the OCCC being an obstacle, seems like a bit of a disconnect. What are the plans, or if there are any, to try and move or relocate the OCCC?
Good question. That the relocation of potential relocation or rebuilding of OCCC is actually in state hands, and so as I understand it, that's being looked at, by the relevant state agencies and legislators. What we did in the TOD plan, with input from them and all the other area landowners, is there's a draft plan which is at council right now, which includes the potential redevelopment of that area if and when a decision is made to either move and build somewhere else or build smaller elsewhere. If you look at all 21 stations, there's no way that all of them are going to develop fast, right? So that would be one of the ones that could wait a little while. That's why we focused on Kapalama area, where the landowner is ready to do some stuff and ready to build some housing. So I would say both Kalihi and Middle Street stations will be a little slow to redevelop until that decision is made about OCCC.
One more? Okay. Well, maybe help me welcome Harrison. That was very encouraging. Yeah, being very new to the TOD, I certainly thought it was a big job, but I think it was even bigger than I was expecting. So we're going to take about a 15-minute break. This is a good opportunity to refresh yourselves, to do some more networking. I'll give you a 5-minute warning, and we'll look forward to being back here at 10:30.